Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Joseph Ryder Anderson podcast. Today, I'm going to be talking you through my Sword Art Online Volume 2 Rare Battle run that ended up insanely well for me. I did 6 SAO Volume 2 Rare Battles at different stores in the broader area and ended up winning 4 of those 6, and the 2 that I didn't win, I got second place in. So this was an insanely good run for me. I have never pursued a rare battle season in this way before. It was something I really wanted to do with Sword Art Online Volume 2, so I really made time in my schedule to prioritize going to SAO Volume 2 rare battles anywhere I could in the greater area, and it was a lot of fun. Going into this season, I really was just trying to get 4 of the Asuna Union Rares. So the Asuna Union Rare that you win from the Volume 2 Rare Battles, she's the Raid Asuna from the Purple Progressive deck, and that's the Purple Progressive deck that I took to Regionals. I'm sorry, the LCQ and Nationals both. So I really had a connection to this deck. Wanted to get those Union Rares, and I was just hoping to get 4 of the top 4 ones, not the first place one. So the difference is the first place one has the winner stamp on it. It's usually worth a lot more than the regular ones, but you can still get a Union Rare promo from just getting top 4. So you don't have to actually get first place to get those. I was just concerned about trying to get 4 of those. Little did I know that I would end up with a complete playset of all 4 winner stamped Union Rare promos. So that was a phenomenal rare battle season for me. And it's the culmination of a journey that I've been on since the end of January. That's how it feels. At the end of January, Sword Art Online Volume 2 came out, and I had been looking forward to that set essentially since Volume 1 came out. And the Sword Art Online decks really needed a Volume 2 to stay competitively viable, and right now they are among the most powerful decks in the format. So I took to Purple Progressive right away. It was just so fast, and at that time it was particularly good into the format, with the likes of Gaius dominating things, and it had favorable matchups into Gaius and had decent matchups into the other top decks. And I took to Purple Progressive right away, took it to the LCQ, made 23rd out of 300 players, qualified for Nationals, and then did a deep run into Nationals, ending up 49th out of the top players in North America. So Purple Progressive and I have had quite a run, and I really wanted to honor that deck with 4 Union Rares, and now I have the 4 Union Rare Winner cards, so it's fantastic. But going into the rare battle season, I kind of wanted to mix it up. I was a little overly apprehensive about the matchup in between GGO and Progressive. It's not as bad as I had originally thought it was, but I kind of want to try something different, as well as I had also just played a lot of Purple Progressive at this point. I wanted to try something else. So in my first rare battle, I took Mother's Rosario, a very almost not entirely generic Mother's Rosario, but I would say compared to what I ended up with later, sort of a more generic Mother's Rosario build with the 2 Lifas teched in. These 2 Lifas really came from my idea for these 2 Lifas came from running Purple Progressive with Argo. A lot of your games, or at least a lot of my games, I win via the Argo that can't be blocked by 4Ks or more. Lifa is just like that, except for you only have to pay only have to pay 1 card from your hand for her to activate her can't be blocked effect, and she also has 3500 BP. So she's a really strong card, and I teched in 2 of her for the similar reason as the Argo, and she's not yet come up. I don't know that she's a bad tech, but that's why she was in there. But overall, I did really well in my first rare battle, and I definitely achieved what I wanted to achieve at that time, which was getting the Asuna Union Rare promo top 4. But ultimately, I felt a little bit unsatisfied, not with my result. I was happy with getting second, but I was a little unsatisfied with how the deck functioned, especially into GGO. And from my perspective, although by the end of the rare battle season, it seemed like everybody was on Progressive, going into the rare battle season, my perspective was that GGO was the most dominant deck. So you really don't want to be playing a deck that feels like it can't keep up with the heavy removal of GGO. So for the next battle, the very next day, I switched it up and I picked up my purple progressive powerhouse deck. I made some slight changes to the list from what it had been in Vegas, largely just removing the two necklaces, the two pendants, I should say, the pendants of Anorite. Those pendants don't stop GGO. So I wanted to opt for just a faster build. So I dropped those two pendants, went with two Argos. Now, Argo is actually a pretty interesting card. It plays into your whole reducing BP on opposing characters. The thing I like about this Argo, this is different than that 3-cost Argo I was just talking about, who's even stronger. The thing I like about this 2-cost Argo in theory is that unlike your 1-cost Mito, that's a raidless character that can reduce BP, Argo has some threat to her. Like if you put an Argo out in the front line, reduce an opposing character's BP, let's say it's a 4,000 BP defender, you can reduce that down to 3,000, and then all of a sudden Argo can swing through it. And if you have an Asuna on the field, she can swing through potentially twice. So she's a bit more threatening than just a 1-cost Mito. Now that works really well in theory. For the most part, in my rare battles, that never came up. But I think the idea of dropping the necklace, given GGO's prevalence and the fact that progressive isn't like an automatic win into GGO, I think dropping the pendant was a really good insight. So anyways, I went to a tournament, super fun tournament, played this, ended up playing against two progressives and then a GGO in the final round, and I was able to overcome the mirror match and win out my first rare battle winner. So that was fantastic. Definitely happened a lot earlier than I would have thought. Getting my first winner from just the second rare battle tournament. So at this point I have one winner and one Union Rare promo. Going into the next tournament, I pretty much played the same deck, just switched it up a little bit. I ended up dropping the Argos in favor of one more 3-cost Mito and one more 1-cost Mito, just to give the build as much consistency as possible. And this deck felt super strong in my third rare battle. I played against progressive, first up against progressive, won that pretty handily. Luckily, my opponent did not have very good triggers. That helped. And I just had a killer hand, and I really paced that properly. Round 2, by this time, I've learned how to deal with GGO a bit better. So round 2 was against GGO, and the thing that I did critically in this battle that I finally learned to do, because by instinct I love to play aggressively, and I think that's why a deck like GGO that's highly aggressive works for me. Or I'm sorry, a deck like progressive, I like to play really aggressively, but one thing that I struggle with is holding back. And into GGO, the thing is, if you field your key pieces early, GGO is just going to remove them. GGO has such reliable removal that can be searched out. It's just, if you raid up a Mito on her own or an Asuna on her own, you're really hurting yourself, because you really need the combo of an Asuna with a Kirito or an Asuna with a Mito, the raid Mito and the 2 AP Kirito, to do a lot of damage. So what I did in this matchup is I really held off, promoted my little characters to put as much damage through, deny my opponent the ability to snipe my key pieces, and just waited for turns where I could combo them for maximum effect. That's how I won the GGO matchup. That was strong. Going into the third round and the final round, I faced down a really cool blue SAO Ironclad Crystal Ingot deck, which I loved to see that someone was playing this, because that was a deck that I had theorized about could be a really fun option. I didn't know that people would play it seriously, but it actually turns out to be pretty strong. Using the Crystal Ingot into the 2-cost Elizabeth is a great way to get additional value out of your 4-cost Kirito. Into this matchup, I will say my opponent got a faster start. There was a moment where I could have chosen between playing a special, my linear special, and removing a Kirito versus raiding up an Asuna. And I chose to raid up the Asuna with the idea that blue Ironclad does not have a lot of removal. You're talking 4 removal cards in the entire deck, so I felt relatively safe raiding up the Asuna. But what happens next turn my opponent specials me from hand, and then the next turn when I raid the next Asuna, my opponent again has another special. I guess he told me after he'd had 2 specials the whole time. With the 2 Asunas gone, I did not see another Asuna the rest of the game and barely lost by a single card. One more Asuna would have won me that game. So that was unfortunate. That is the weakness of Progressive, and I probably should have held off on playing my Asuna until I could have maximized having her on the field. But that's something I learned from later, which we'll see. Moving on to the next rare battle, this was just 2 days later, so by this point, I didn't change my deck at all. I just played the same deck going to this rare battle. Round 1, so actually a friend of mine, a really strong player, that didn't have an SAO deck, so I let him borrow my Mother's Rosario deck. He ends up topping the event with me with the borrowed Mother's Rosario deck that I'd upgraded slightly since my first battle to make it a little stronger early game. But I played him round 1, beat him, just rushed him down. Obviously, I know Mother's Rosario really well, so I knew what to do. Round 2, got my rematch into the same player who had played GGO and won at the first rare battle. Only this time I was playing Progressive, and same thing, rushed him down and won pretty handily. Now, in the final battle is when things were super interesting. Into GGO, this battle, the key thing that happened here, I learned this from that battle into Blue Ironclad. There was another moment where I had the option between specialing a low-cost character, which sucks to do, right? Specialing a low-cost character or raiding up one of my key pieces. And so I looked at my hand. My opponent had a 2,000 BP Kirito on the field. I could special him and I'd get like 1 or 2 attacks through, or I could raid up a strong character. And I went with, this time, unlike last time where I went with raiding up the character, this time I went with the specialing the Kirito, which was a hard choice to make, but definitely the right choice to make in this scenario. And I knew from my hand that I could get a really powerful turn in soon. Ended up getting a really powerful turn through, and then I basically closed out the game. My opponent walled up with a bunch of Kiritos and Xenons, and I was able to swing through multiple times with Argo to win the game. So Argo wins me a lot of games. Argo's an insane card. You could arguably say Argo is the strongest card in the deck. I don't think that you'd be completely wrong in saying that. So she's a huge benefit to this deck. Now, some time passes between this rare battle. Now, all of a sudden, I have 2 Asuna winners. So I'm not sure if I'm yet thinking about completing the play set. I'm pretty happy with, I have 2 Asuna winners, 2 Asuna top 4s, and then my friend who got Mother's Rosario, who won with Mother's Rosario or topped Mother's Rosario, traded me his rare battle top for a solo leveling card. So I have at this point 5 of these cards. So I'm not sure if I'm really looking for the Asuna winners at this point to complete the whole set, but I am definitely thinking about some of the weaknesses of Progressive a little more. I'm thinking about how in that battle against Blue Ironclad, how not having another Asuna lost me the game. I'm thinking back to Nationals, where in the final round of Nationals, I had a fantastic start and then don't see another single Asuna. I see one Asuna the entire game and lose, and how often that happens. And so I start kind of thinking, I think the idea for this really came to me after losing to the Blue Ironclad. I started thinking about Smile for You and how typically we think of Smile for You and how it combos really, really well with SAO Survivor cards and Yuna. But I'm thinking, like, what if there was a card in purple that let you bring a character back? And I'm like, okay, well, Smile for You lets you bring a character back, right? So if theoretically, if I'm running, at that time I was thinking, well, what if I tech in 1 Smile for You? And that kind of turned into, well, what if I go with more Smile for Yous? And the cool thing about Smile for You, you get to bring back an Asuna from your sideline. And a lot of times too, I notice is that having a special in Progressive, just having a regular kill special often isn't that great. A lot of times you just don't have time to play it. You have to move quickly. You have to get attacks through. You have to have bodies on the field. And you have to also have a body on the field because you sometimes want multiple bodies to reduce their BP so that you can get a ton of attacks through. So removing really doesn't help purple Progressive all that much. So I'm kind of like factoring all this together, and I'm like, well, what if I put together a deck that had Smile for You to bring back the Asuna, and I ran a couple of SAO survivors to get the free play as well. So with the ideal line here being, use the Smile for You, bring back the Raid Asuna, already have like an Asuna or a Kirito or an Agula in hand, play one of those for free, plus you get the Asuna back. With 2 Smile for Yous in your deck, it's kind of like having 6 Asunas. So that was the idea. I then also had to drop an Argo for the Kirito, and my friend and fantastic Union Arena champion, Milo, happened to mention that this Akihiko Kayaba site was really handy, and I tested that out. Really liked it, especially as a replacement for one of the Argos. And in this build, because you have the Smile for You, you can free play characters a little more effectively, which makes sacrificing one of your own to search for 2 progressive cards very, very strong. So I ended up with a deck that I call Song and Dance, which is a blend between progressive and song with a heavily leaning on progressive. And this deck really feels so strong. I really feel like this is like maybe my favorite way to play progressive to date. Took this to a tournament and did end up topping that tournament. After a little bit of a wild ride, I was biking there, trying out this new bike I got, and my bike broke down. So I ended up like getting an Uber, almost missed the tournament, but came out on top. And now all of a sudden I have 3 Asuna winners. So now all of a sudden the idea is in my head, okay, I have 3 Asuna winners. I have like about a week, a little more than a week left of rare battles. How am I going to go about getting the 4th Asuna winner? All of a sudden now, for the first time, I really want the Asuna winner playset. So I don't do another rare battle for a bit. There's a little bit of time in between, and I start thinking a bit more about Mother's Rosario again, the deck that I played my first rare battle with. I've been seeing a lot of stuff online. It's funny because the SAO timeline for the story was once way ahead when it came out. Now we're caught up to it. So the events of the story are kind of happening in real time right now, where, for example, Yuki, the whole drama, I won't spoil it if you haven't seen SAO, but the whole drama around Yuki is happening around this time. And Yuki is one of the main characters in the SAO Mother's Rosario deck. So I'm like thinking about Mother's Rosario. I'm thinking about, how do I make this deck better? I still feel like I don't have the perfect build. And so I'm just messing around with different kinds of ideas, free plays, all this stuff. And then I come up with this one idea for a lightsaber, a Kirito lightsaber deck. It looked a bit differently than it came out now. And I was like, well, Photon Sword's a really strong card. And the Kirito actually fits in pretty well into Mother's Rosario. The 2000 BP 0 cost fills a void in this deck. And then the 4 cost Kirito protects Asuna, as well as just being another body. So I started playing around this idea of doing like a blend with the Kirito and the Mother's Rosario. And I started kind of experimenting with some of the free plays. One of the problems with Mother Rosario is there's a lot of self-sidelining. So that's what happened in my battle against GGO. Not only was I getting hit with removal, I was sidelining my own characters. So one way to deal with this is to get more free plays. So what I settled on was 2 Sleeping Knight characters. And what happens when you play the Sleeping Knight, you get to play a 2 cost or less ALO character, which just helps you fill up your board more. So that if although Yuki lets you play, the 4 cost Yuki is really strong. You sideline a 4000 BP character in your opponent's field, but at the end of your attack phase, she's sidelining herself. But you do get to play an Asuna with 3 costs less for free. But if you don't have that Asuna in hand, if you've played a Sleeping Knights that turn, you're good. Like, you've already kind of filled that void by having another character on the field. So that just helps have more board presence. So I think that was critical, as well as dropping down the 2 AP Yuki. Again, she's another self-sidelining character. I still have 2 of her in the deck, but I think running 4 of her is just a little too much self-sidelining. So those changes, I also really like the Photon Sword, because you can use the Photon Sword to buff Asuna, Raid Asuna, to a damage 2, impact 1 character at just 6 Yuki or Mother Rosario in the sideline, which is really easy to hit. So all of a sudden at 6 of those in your sideline, Asuna is when attacking, draw a card, damage 2, impact 1 that can boost to a character that can't be blocked. 5000 BP as well, and then she can't be blocked. If you get to 8, she can't be blocked by 3000 BP or less. So all of a sudden, she's even more powerful. Although you do have the Asuna, the 3 cost Asuna that boosts to an impact 4000 BP impact character, I often found when I was testing that there was moments where you really just need 1 impact to get over the line, and you just don't have that Asuna around. So that Photon Sword acts as a very powerful closing move. And you can also use this on just about any character to make them able to close out the game, because it boosts 2000 BP and grants impact the impact is as long as you have Kirito on the field, which is pretty easy in this deck with 6 copies of Kirito. So that's how I came up with this deck. I wasn't 100% sure how well it was going to do in the rare battle format. I tested it a bit against myself, and it definitely felt like it had some stronger matchups than others. So I go to the final tournament. I'm a bit tired. It's been a lot of work going on. Not just with the testing. Obviously, the testing was on top of all the other work I've been doing. On top of all the other work I was doing, I was testing 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning on these different strategies. So I was a bit tired, a bit worn out, but I really wanted to give it one more go to see if I could seal out the 4th winner promo. And I did go to a really cool tournament. It was a box tournament as well as a rare battle tournament. And I ended up facing down 3 purple progressive decks, which actually I have to say purple progressive is probably in this format the best matchup for Mother's Rosario. So I didn't bring Mother's Rosario expecting to run into 3 different progressive decks. But the thing is, progressive, the main weakness to progressive, again, unless you're running my song and dance build, the main weakness to progressive is just heavy removal. If you hit progressive with a ton of removal, it's very hard for progressive to overcome that. And what does Mother's Rosario have? Mother's Rosario has a ton of removal. So the purple progressive battles went pretty well up until the final round was the toughest. And I did face a player who was really strong, and he was actually a fan of the site. So or at least a fan of JWA in general. So I don't know if he's on the site or if he's on social, but anyways, it was great to meet him. And he was playing I think he was playing the build I took to Vegas. So I got to kind of battle a ghost from my past with a deck of the future, which was this new Mother's Rosario Lightsabers hybrid. And it was an insanely close battle. If I did a move at the end, basically I was on the receiving end of my opponent's attacks. And I was like, okay, I need to take every single one of these hits so that I have enough attackers so that when I special 2 the following turn with Mother's Rosario, I can get the 3 attacks in, a full board of the front line, and my opponent will just have 1, and I'll get 3 attacks in, which will close out the game. But for that to work, my opponent has to have no purple color triggers, no specials, and the last card obviously can't be a final. If any of those were to happen, if the last card was a final, if he had a special, or if he had a purple color trigger, I was not winning that game because he had a Mito in hand. I had 1 life left, all 2,000 or less characters. It was over. It was all in, and I attacked through nothing, attack through no final. That's game. So I closed it out for the 4th Asuna winner. 6 Union Rares overall, 6 tournaments, 4 of them won, 2 second place. And what was extra cool is from the winnings that I got from this tournament, I also pulled the 2-star Kirito. So this is the Kirito with the blue rose sword and the Night Skyblade from the Alicization arc and the Integrity Knight deck. So what a fantastic way to close out this season. So it's a little bittersweet for this whole journey that I've essentially been on since the end of January, and in a big way the last couple of weeks. It's a little bittersweet for it to be over, but I can't imagine a better way for this season to end for me on a personal level. And so I just want to thank all of my opponents who played against me. It was a fantastic time. I appreciate all of you giving it your all, trying your hardest. And it made for an exceptionally fun and challenging tournament, forced me to play my best to win. And with that being said, check out the website, check out the recap on the blog, and until next time, keep on battling.